Happy Whiskey Wednesday, single malt Scotch lovers, and welcome back, Maxim viewers. Thanks again for joining us. It's absolutely wonderful to be with you every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll have a very special guest today. He will be joining us a little bit later, Colin Gordon. Yes, the distillery manager of super famous Lagavulin. So a great treat. I thought it would be a good idea to maybe add an extra ounce of escape to our tasting. You know, just traveling not only with those drams that we put in the glasses, but traveling with some real person and from Islay, of all parts of Scotland. Anyway, I want to get straight into the heart of the matter here because we need to have the wood talk, right? Look, wood has been used for thousands of years to contain all sorts of beverages and foods, right? From chestnut to acacia to, of course, oak, but hickory, maple, and all of those. But it's been really just about 200 years that we've been using, when I say we, I mean, you know, people over in Scotland have been using those wooden barrels in order to enhance the flavors of that Scotch whiskey. And it's just about shy of 40 years of that oak mandatory use. It's been only a thing, oak, for not even 40 years, believe it or not. So let's get into it because we've got a lot to talk about. Hopefully you got yourselves all of these bottles, right? Cardew 12-year-old, Oban Little Bay, and the very special Offerman edition of Lagavulin. So let's get to it. Cardew 12-year-old, which to me is the very ideal number one. And I'm saying this because it's the friendliest malt of all, really. And I don't mean that it's overly easy and soft and all that. No, I just mean that this is a malt, and go ahead and smell it. Remember, I will be taking questions, you Maxim viewers, and if you're on Facebook, I'll be taking your questions. So don't hesitate. Now, all right, a note of almond, honey. There's something a bit citrusy here. You see, when I say that oak is ideal, I mean that you could be using all sorts of other trees, right, to make barrels. What you need is two things. One, you need some tree, you need some wood that would be strong enough, right? Structurally strong enough. And also that would be easy to bend. So it needs to be somewhat flexible. Now we're not using, say, pine, right? Although pine grows fast, is inexpensive, and it grows fast and straight, okay? We're not using those for barrels because we'd be getting too much resin. Out of other wood types, would be getting too much maybe bitterness. So oak, provided you bring the right heat treatment, and I'm making a reference to the toasting or the other old practice of charring here, would only give you positive notes, right? That's it. That's basically why we've got oak. And oh, I forgot. Well, you've got plenty of oak just about everywhere, right? In spite of what you may think, and you know, the world is drinking a lot more wine, the world is drinking a lot more fine quality spirits, right? But we're not running out of oak trees. Many forests have been managing those growings of oak trees for the longest time. So you don't have to worry about this. Now, when it comes to an oak barrel, you, well, you know, one of my mentors, LL Cool J, stressed repeatedly how fascinating the big old butt can be. But the butt is not everything, right? You have all sorts of barrels, right? You've got the rejuvenated barrels, you've got the X's and the virgin barrels. You've got well, the Madeira drums. You've got the port pipes. You've got the wine barriques. You've got quarter casks. You've got first fill, third fill. You've got punch-ons. You've got so many barrels, right? Different oak species as well. Could be European oak species. It could be Asian oak species. It could be American oak species. And of course, we're dealing with just about a dozen of oak species to make barrels that will be used by the whiskey industry. But those guys will have a great influence on the whiskey itself. Now, I'm not sure how much, say, Helen Cummings, founder of Cardou, many years ago, I'm not sure how much she exactly knew or cared about on the origins of the oak itself, right? Because back then, they were using wooden barrels that were coming off as a byproduct of the wine trade, right? So they were using just wooden barrels, and could have been chestnut, could have been something else. But this is what we have now, and we're pretty okay with this. Let's see if, while I'm tasting it again, let's see if we've got some good questions here. Yes, keep on sharing this video with your friends. That's very nice of you. Spirits Network, I've got a very nice note thanking us for being here for you. Yes, I mean, definitely we're trying to spice things up a bit. Our service for being, well, quite easy to use and combining both entertainment and shoppability. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. Thank you for joining us. I want to hear from you, Maxim viewers. So please ask a question. I'll be back to you in just a second. So many different sizes, many different shapes. As a matter of fact, did I see a question on the size? I believe I did. Yes. So let me see this. How does the size really matter? Well, it does, because the bigger the barrel, right? LL Cool J, big old butt. The bigger the barrel, the less impact, in theory, of the oak itself on the spirit that is maturing. The reverse aspect of this is just that if it's a smaller barrel, there's a lot more wood to liquid, a higher wood to liquid ratio, right? You're exposing every gallon or liter of that Scotch whiskey maturing there inside the barrel to a lot more oak. Fine, of course. But then there are so many other elements to a barrel. What if it's a small barrel, say a quarter cask, right? But that's been used so many times before. Certainly its impact on the whiskey will be a lot less than a first fill sherry butt that still had quite a bit of that Oloroso sherry trapped in the pores of the wood, right? So, it all depends. Why don't we just move to Oban Little Bay? So pour yourself this second single malt Scotch whiskey. Oban Little Bay, established 1794. Yes. There's a mention of small cask. All right, and this is what we want to talk about, because it's a lot more than just a small cask that it was matured in, right? This is exactly, go ahead and smell it. All right, so it's a lot more intense than this Cardou 12-year-old. There's no age statement on this Oban Little Bay, and yet certainly nothing thin in there. All right, I'm getting something a bit spicy, something aniseed-like, dark chocolate, maybe some orange marmalade as well. Let's Well, let's taste it. To me, this is exactly where you can get a good understanding of aging versus maturation. You can go the very simple way, it's pretty straightforward, and put that freshly distilled new make spirit into the barrel. Wait 12 years, and then dump the content, bottle the whiskey, and that's it. You got yourself a 12-year-old. Okay, that's aging. Some may argue that you still need to care and check on that barrel every once in a while, but this is fairly simple. I would say this is the crock pot method of cooking your Scotch whiskey, right? Because you know it works. But you can also decide, because maybe the DNA of the whiskey calls for being accompanied in its complexity by a variety of barrels. If you're the distiller, you can decide to split your stocks in between different sorts of barrels, so that you identify the different characters playing there, and then you want to marry them all so that each of those personalities will shine, but it will be all in one great tune. Then in this case, talking about cooking, it would be more like your traditional Spanish paella method of cooking, separate elements together, and then almost right by the end putting everything together, and then the whole is oh so much greater than its original smaller parts, right? So I guess this is what I would call a dynamic maturation, not just aging, not just maturation, dynamic maturation. Let's take a closer look at this. This Oban Little Bay was made from ex-European oak sherry butts, and since the greatest philosopher of all times said it so well in 1982, Eddie Murphy, the boogie is in the butt, right? You've got ex-European oak made sherry butts. You've got ex-bourbon barrels that were fitted with new oak ends, and you've got refill American hogsheads, right? All of these guys put together for some sort of a finishing in small casks. Dynamic maturation it is. So we're getting another question from a Maxim viewer. How do you properly taste? Well, look, it's, first of all, as I always say, it's quite personal. I really want to force all of these molecules to be in contact with my olfactory receptors, and that's why I'm giving it a few swirls, because I want all of those molecules, each with a different molecular weight, to get to my nose, right? I've had this Oban Little Bay with a few drops of water before, and it's funny, the vanilla was just popping straight out, right? So that's an interesting way to have it too. But make sure that you go back to it, right? And then right, breathing through it, put a little air in it, and then after you've swallowed, the retronasal, breathing out through the nose, extremely important, right? So I think I need to hear more of your questions, right? Let me see this. Let's see. Right, okay, so I'm getting a question from, a question from Paul here. What about the different oak species? Okay, so the oak species, yes, of course, it's a big difference. Think about it this way. Yellow dent number 2, talking about corn, is very different from Bloody Butcher, right? Just to make sense for the grain that we're oh so familiar here with. Okay. It's the same thing for oak. If you take Quercus alba, and if you take Quercus robur, those are totally different. You're talking about 10 times the amount of tannins on this European oak species, that's Quercus robur, right? You're gonna have to be careful. If you're the distiller, if you're the warehouse manager, you're gonna be careful with the origins of the barrel, and you know it's that European oak species that the barrels were made from, but because maybe it's a first fill, and because maybe the wine that stayed in that barrel didn't stay there for too long, you know you've got to worry about the tannins. The tannins will make it more bitter if you keep the whiskey for too long in there. So maybe you want to keep it there for just 6 months and transfer that whiskey into some other barrels, right? Maybe the best use for that European oak made wine barrel is on a third fill. You know what I'm saying? So you know if you're using American oak, you're gonna get the coconut and the vanilla, and it's rarely going to be any detrimental to the whiskey. However, if the personality of your malt is light and delicate, maybe you want to be careful and you want to use that Quercus Durandii or Quercus alba. Not that you really have the choice, you know, if you're the cooperage facility, you're getting those white oak species, and you don't really know whether it's alba or Durandii or Lirata. Chances are you'll know if it's Gariana or another oak species, but otherwise it's all in the same pool. Different heat treatments, we talked about this. Depending on the amount of charring there is going on, you'll get different flavors and so on. But I have the feeling that I should be getting to the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is called Lagavulin. Well, I'm gonna be told off if I'm not saying it right. It's just I love it so much. This is the Offerman edition, so you're in for a treat. And while I'm pouring, I just want to make sure that you guys know that we have your back. We have your back for Mother's Day. If you check us out, Spirits Network, you'll find some really cool gifts for her. And remember, if you can enjoy it today, it is thanks to her. Happy Mother's Day. Oh, and happy birthday, Gisela, too. It happens to be her birthday today, and she just turned 21, it seems. So I know you're wondering, what am I doing? Am I pouring? Am I not pouring? Is Colin going to join us? Yes, Colin is going to join us. I want to tell you, all of you, that you're so brave, because yesterday was Cinco de Mayo, right? I mean, in the US, it's a pretty big deal for obvious reasons. So you had your fair share of tequila. I love tequila too, but I really want you to focus on your Scotch whiskey. So, without further ado, and you gotta know it's way past midnight over there, please welcome Colin Gordon, Distillery Manager at Lagavulin. Colin, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey Flavian, how you doing? Great to be speaking to you.
Well, I'm putting my nose over what you made, and I'm feeling pretty good about this. You know, there were concerns from our viewers last week because I did not include a Lagavulin in the lineup, and I usually do. Just I do love it.
Word got back to us on Isla about that, and we were disappointed, but hopefully we're making amends tonight.
I shall hope so. Now, this may not be available absolutely everywhere because you didn't make it in huge quantities, right?
No, it was very limited edition. It was led by the American market, so we launched it in the States and some went to Australia, and we fought very hard to bring it to Scotland to back its home here at the distillery. So we managed to get hold of some bottles here. It's the only place in Europe you can get it on Isla.
Nice, very nice.
So it's already a pilgrimage for folk coming over here to drink whiskey, and Offerman fans went wild. They came here especially. So
Well, you should know
yeah.
that our viewers, our members, can get it on Spirits Network. So we're feeling pretty good about this. But wait a second, I thought I would find you in the very confinement of the distillery. You happen to be the manager. I thought you'd be sitting right by those barrels, maybe in one of those warehouses or in the still room. You didn't quarantine yourself in the still room. What's happening?
No, no. I came home. We haven't had to tighten security during lockdown, so I don't have to sit in the warehouse all night. Although there's worse places to sit, certainly. We're still running, and I'm obviously at the distillery every day with the guys. And yeah, it's beautiful. The island's so quiet just now. Actually, it's very strange. We're normally gearing up for Fèis, for our big whiskey festival at the end of May, which has been cancelled, but we'll be doing hopefully something exciting to make up for it. But yeah, we're looking after each other in the true Isle of Wight. It's a real strong community. We're doing good. We're doing good.
But I mean, is there a real difference between now and the usual way of life on Isla?
Well, everybody already knows what everyone else does, and that's probably increased even more just now. So if you're out driving, everybody knows where you're going. So now there's no hiding because everyone's in their house looking out their window.
Is that what's happening? I guess it's not a very small island, but not too many inhabitants. Is it? I mean, do you mostly know everyone or of everybody?
Well, certainly. Down this end of the island, we stay in Portellen. We've got the 3 distilleries just along the road from us, so Lafroig, then us at Lagavulin, and then Ardbeg. It's a pretty tight-knit community, so I would say we know a lot of people here. It's a great place. The whisky industry, we're also proud of what we do, and for an island of 3,000 people to make such iconic spirits that are known globally, they all just sort of look out for each other and work side by side, which is quite unique in the days of big business. So yeah, it's a really cool place to be. And I mean, the weather's been fantastic. We're so lucky, really. We're all facing big challenges, but there's certainly worse places you could be. And I actually poured myself a wee Offerman 11 as well, just to see us through. So we're looking after ourselves as well.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be the same thing over on Isla, that it will be, say, here in upstate New York or in many other countryside areas of the United States. But I can tell a lot of people will want to have their country house on Isla. So watch for the real estate going up, maybe. I don't know. So Colin, what would you, if you want to help our viewers understand this whiskey, what would you say? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? Where is it coming from? And then of course, I want to hear about the barrel selection that you went through with Nick Offerman, if you don't mind, because I think everybody is waiting to hear from you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when we launched it, we've had an association with Nick since we did Tales of Whisky. So obviously with the Parks and Recreation, Ron Swanson's a huge fan of Lagavulin, but so is Nick Offerman. It's genuinely his favourite whisky, and he's always been hugely excited when he comes over. He's just like a super fan. So we did some shooting with him for Tales of Whisky, which was really funny, and we involved loads of people from the community. Some really good sketches. And then we wanted to continue that relationship, so we gave him the opportunity to do a whisky with us. And Lagavulin is, most people know the 16, obviously that's the sort of iconic single malt that we do, 16-year-old, and we launched the 8-year-old in 2016 for the 200 years. Both those whiskies are all refill casks, so because Lagavulin is powerful and rich and earthy and smoky, peaty, woody, there's so much going on, but there's so much more than that as well, obviously with the 16 raisins, and I always get a licorice note. You were talking earlier, we all taste and smell different things, but because that's predominantly refill casks we use, so a mixture of European American oak that they've been used, they've come over into Scotland, we've filled them before with whiskey and then disgorged, used them again, and then most likely Lagavulin goes into them. So what we did with the Offerman, we wanted, because of Nick Offerman's links with woodworking, he's a carpenter to trade, or a joiner as we would say in Scotland. We wanted to do something to show off a bit about woodwork, so we actually gave him a selection to try of a mix of refill American oak and rejuvenated American oak. So American white oak that had come to the end of its life, if you like, it's exhausted. So when we disgorge a cask, when we're ready to bottle it, we'll check the colour of the whiskey, and when that starts to get fainter and fainter, you think, well, this cask's exhausted, it's not going to give out as much to the spirit. Back in the day, you would have obviously thrown it away or made it into a nice flower pot, or there's always people looking for casks. But what you do now is you just skim the surface of it, so you almost take off a thin layer of the inside and then re-char it and rejuvenate it, and then you can use it again. And that's what we did with these. We gave Nick 6 samples at different strengths of either 40-60 percentage, 40% refill, 60% rejuve. Then we tried 50-50 and then 60-40, and we went pretty much for bang on 50-50 between refill American oak and rejuvenated American oak. And it's just you get like almost a bit of spice from rejuvenated oak sometimes with Lagavulin, but I think there's like a big orchard fruits thing going on with it, which is quite unusual for Lagavulin. So pears and apples maybe. But it's wonderfully raw. It's wonderfully rounded for a Lagavulin. And we went for an 11-year-old as well, which is a bit different, kind of like with Nick and his sort of quirky sense of humour. He said, well, no one's bottled an 11-year-old, let's do it. So we went for an 11-year-old.
That's right. Not? I mean, honestly, this, to me, it's beautiful. You could absolutely tell me, this is 9-year-old or this is 15-year-old. I'd say, okay, great. You know, it's just, to me, it's just a beautiful whiskey. So let's see if we have questions here. Right. So okay, I have Chris from Maxim, who's asking why the jump in Scotch whiskey age statements. But I think, Colin, this is a question perfect for you, because what I fell in love with was the 16, right? And yet we had the 8-year-old in a past session, and it's great. This 11-year-old is amazing. I'm a big fan of the cask strength 12-year-old. So I like them all, okay? But can you explain the age jump and how it affects the particular style of Lagavulin? Is there an ideal age, or is there just an ideal moment in a different history?
I think what we consistently look to produce at the distillery is the new make spirit we are making has to be bang on spec every time. It's all about the phenolics, the phenol of the spirit. The blenders are quite particular; they want a set amount every time, and then obviously you can play some tricks with the wood. So the 16 has always been the sort of iconic age for Lagavulin. The 8-year-old, I think at first a few people were a bit surprised, because it is so different. It's big, like maritime salt and pepper, and it's like you're standing outside Warehouse 1 in a howling gale. You know, that wee wisp you get off the salt air that rusts everything, but it's part of the magic of Islay. And yeah, I think over time we've tried different things with different woods. So you know yourself with maturation, if you've got a very active cask, or you don't want to over mature, so we try and balance it. We did a 21-year-old last year for our jazz festival on Islay, which we did, and it's absolutely incredible. You know, some Lagavulins just age perfectly. So I think there's a balance. If you get your cask management right, and the blenders are keeping a close eye, as long as we get to sample it as well, of course.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, look, this is it's called quality control. You can't just leave it up to the lab to make sure that this is the real deal in the bottle. So, well, I got to tell you, Lagavulin 16 being the base, to me, the Distillers Edition with that extra time spent in Pedro Jimenez sherry butts. That does it. Why does it do it so well? Can you please explain this?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to understand myself.
It just the 16-year-old is rich. You know, there's so much going on with it. Like we were saying earlier, with this the big earthy note that you get as classic, you know, Lagavulin, real like the it's almost like the earth of a dunnage warehouse floor. We've got 2 warehouses on site, all traditional warehousing. That smell when you go in, it's almost like you can get that in the whiskey with the 16, but then the sort of fruits that come through, the raisins and things. But just by then finishing or doing a secondary maturation, putting that in we use a mix of PX and Oloroso casks, first fill, just for a year. So it's just finished for 9 months to a year, depending on how active the cask is, and it just gives it even more depth and richness. It's like a smoky pudding, as we say on Islay. It's just absolutely incredible. It's one of my ultimate favourites. It's a brilliant whiskey, the Distillers Edition.
Well, so now I may have another favorite. This is going to be tough because I know every year to look out for that special limited edition of the Distillers Edition of Lagavulin with that PX, right? But now I think I'm going to go and on the app and just get myself another couple of bottles before they just disappear. I guess a limited edition is a limited edition. Seize the opportunity when you can.
Yeah.
Colin, what is your very way to enjoy Lagavulin? Is it outside? Is it in front of your computer? Is there a time and a place? What do you think is the ideal consumption of Lagavulin? Besides being at the distillery, not everybody can do that.
Yeah, it's a great question. We'd always encourage people, obviously, to enjoy whiskey any way they want. I think for a long time, you know, in the whiskey world, we told people there was only one way to drink it, but you know, around the world, people enjoy it any way they want. But personally, we've got 2 young kids running about. At the end of a day, when everything calms down, I like to pour myself a wee dram. But it's a real social thing on Islay. It's built into the place. So wherever you are in the world, it's a whiskey that instantly takes you to the place. So even if you've not been to Islay, if you're sitting with good company, be it in the middle of New York or anywhere you want, the remotes of Canada, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're sitting with good company, Lagavulin's just the perfect. And it's a real warming drink. You know, we think we've seen bad winters here, and then obviously you guys over there get some real snow. You know, it's the perfect warming drink as well. So it's good company. It's all about company. It's built into our social psyche that it's a drink you should enjoy with people. It might be challenging just now. You might have to do it like we are just now with headphones across a computer screen, but we're still in good company.
All right, very good. I just checked my phone for maybe one last question. How does one get to be oh so lucky to be the distillery manager of Lagavulin? Where are you coming from? What did you do? This is like, I picked that question also because this is my very question in another life, maybe.
Yeah, I think we get asked it a lot. We're lucky. I genuinely, I'm very lucky. I know that. Like, I love my whiskey, and I love Lagavulin. I didn't grow up on Islay. I grew up in the sort of Southern Highlands in a little village in the hills. So I worked my way in, I suppose, as a trainee manager and worked various sites. And when the opportunity came up to come to Islay, we moved here. My wife's an island girl. She's from a little island near Oban. She's from an island of 70 people, so it makes this place look like a buzzing metropolis, you know. So we came over here. I ran the maltings for a few years. We have a big maltings on the island that provides 7 of the 9 distilleries on Islay. And then when the opportunity came up to Lagavulin, I jumped at it. And genuinely, the day I walked in, I was so excited. I'm really humble. It's a brilliant place to work and a great team. And we get to taste the most amazing, like ridiculously amazing.
I know. I'm jealous. I'm really jealous. So I guess, I mean, I really want to stay with you for a couple hours, but I know we cannot be abusing of our viewers for too long. So maybe one last question, and maybe it's a little bit technical, but we had a Whiskey Wednesday just on peat that our Spirits Network members can just view at their leisure if they missed it. And we talked about the origins of peat being different. But since you worked at the Port Ellen maltings, and by the way, for you geeks out there will be a Port Ellen whiskey coming up again in the future, right? This is an iconic whiskey, but that's it for now. What about those phenolic compounds that you were talking about earlier? How does your selection of that peated malt affect the final taste? Which phenols or guaicos, cresols, whatever phenolic compounds are you looking for? Can you please just give us a few secrets here?
Well, there's so, as you know there, as you just said, there's so many different phenolic compounds. I think there's been loads of studies done around peats from different regions and how they impact, because obviously peat's different wherever you go in Scotland or wherever you go in the world. So on Islay we don't have many trees, a lot of moss, sphagnum moss, compressed, so Islay peat is pretty different. So say the guys were to ever burn mainland peat, not that we would, obviously we want to burn the Islay stuff, they would say it's not as good. They'd be like, you want to burn Islay peat, it burns well and you get smoke. Obviously we don't want heat, so lots of good smoke. We smoke the barley when you're drying the malt for 16 hours, so it gets a real whack, if you like. And they alter it because different distilleries will want different strength of phenolics, if you like, or phenols levels. So we would alter how long we would peat for, and that would give the distilleries the required spec. But yeah, as long as it's good Islay peat and we were, getting the strength we wanted. The analysis that we used to do off the back of the labs was incredibly complicated, and there was a huge number of different phenolic compounds, but it was all in the taste at the end of the day. As long as we got what we wanted in the classic Lagavulin,
right.
that was all we were looking for.
So are you saying that maybe it's not just in the lab, you're also tasting everything yourselves, but what if you're about to bottle that Lagavulin 16, right? So you pull those barrels out of those warehouses and you get a sample, you analyze it, meaning that gas chromatography piece of equipment that you've got, coupled with that mass spectrometry, you see what you have and in which quantities. But it doesn't smell and nor taste the regular Lagavulin 16. Does that happen? What do you do in this case? I mean, what if things go wrong? Maybe because 16 years back there was a change in the peat supply that the Port Ellen maltings got. I don't know. I mean, do things go wrong in this case?
It's a great question again. We analyse, as a business, Diageo, who we're part of, have 10 million casks sitting maturing. There's only 5 million of us in Scotland as well, so it works out to a pretty good ratio of whisky maturing. But we will work our way through. The blenders will always nose different samples. So for instance, there were probably 800 casks left Lagavulin just before Christmas. So early December, we put out 800 casks to the mainland to be bottled, and it was all 18-year-old. And that ended up in 16-year-old, because obviously the age statement's the youngest whiskey in it. So you're getting some amount of great whiskey in there to get 18-year-old Lagavulin in it as well. But what the blenders will do, they would analyse a batch. So say we've done a run of, I don't know, we've filled 300-400 casks. They would pick maybe 15, 20 of them, because they've all been filled at the same time. They'll check the wood type and check on the nose. That's all they do. You see them in action, it's incredible. They just work through the samples, just nose, before anything goes through. So they have a rough idea. Sometimes maybe, like you say, a cask touch wood, it doesn't happen with us very often. I hope it doesn't, but if a cask something's not right, or it doesn't nose right or look right, then they would need to make a decision. You either try and re-rack it, so put it in a new cask, or if the decision, if it's not no good at all, then they need to dispose of it. But quality is key. Obviously, like, we've got passionate fans around the world that love Lagavulin, and we certainly don't want anything going out that's not bang on every time. So you've got to hit the mark, and it's all sampling a lot of casks.
Well, I don't know if well, clearly you're not on the same pace as I am, because for you it's a bit late. But here in New York City, we're just around 6:30, and good God, this is the perfect time for it.
This is going down a dream, to be honest. This is going. You've put me right in the mood here now, Flavian. I'll be needing to go to my bed, but I just want to pour another one. It's fantastic.
No, you should. I mean, if you have more in the bottle, you should. One last word. The very recipe of Lagavulin 16, is it 2/3 ex-American oak bourbon barrels, 1/3 Oloroso sherry butts? Is it half and half? Is it 16 years separately? Is it 14 plus 2? Can you just give us the very portrait of Lagavulin 16, please?
It's a question that comes up all the time. I can't, and to be honest, I don't know myself exactly, because that's how secretive. I swear to you, that's how secretive the blenders are with the with the 16-year-old. It depends. Obviously, it'll vary. So they'll have a set figure in their head of how they want to make the mix up. But like, if the cask hasn't been as active, or some casks have been more active and given the flavour profile they're looking for, they'll alter the recipe. But I will try and find out for you, Flavian. I can assure you, as soon as I know, you'll be the first man to tell.
Yeah, okay. Colin, how do you call the inhabitants of the Isle of Islay?
Elichs, so the Gaelic name, obviously the language still spoken by someone, Islay, is Elich.
Elich
is the name. Elich, yeah. And if you're from Jura, you're a Jurich.
Right. So, do they know how good they have it, the Elich?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, right. Everyone knows it's a great place to be. It's a great place to be, and we're very proud of the industry and the whiskies we make.
Well, so, I can vouch for this, for having traveled to Islay several times. It's pretty much right there next to paradise, as a place where we all want to be. So to the Elich, and to you, may you stay at Lagavulin forever. This means that we're going to keep this quality up. Thanks again for joining us, Colin. Thanks again for your great answers, and hopefully you can join us at some point later. And if you've got too much of that Offerman edition stash by you, you know where to send this over. Thanks again. And for you, Whisky Wednesday, cheers, Slange. For you, Whisky Wednesday viewers and Maxim viewers, thanks again for being part of this great virtual live tasting. It's been really, really great, and certainly I've been enjoying it a lot. Remember, WWVIP is your code to get your free Explorer membership. Why haven't you done this yet? I don't know. Maybe you're a little strange right there. If you're already a member, please let us upgrade you to an enthusiast or connoisseur membership. You'll love the experience. I'll curate the bottles for you. My team and I, this is all we think about every day. What bottles are we going to be sending this month? Please let us play with this. Well, if you didn't get it, yes, I do love this Lagavulin Offerman edition. You can get it on Spirits Network. Until the next time, and as usual, please drink responsibly. It's a lot of fun. Stay safe, and remember, if you order it on time, you do get it on time, and we can enjoy it together. Cheers. Slanjva. Thank you, Maxim viewers. We'll see you soon.